All right, word. All right, gonna make a couple of little edits here and get started in a minute. And yeah, this ought to be fun. So making these edits for purpose of upgrading what was originally supposed to be a good recording that turned pretty bad. So normally I want to get this done in about 15 minutes, but I went a lot longer than I did wanted to. So what I'm gonna do is redo it. And I appreciate you bearing with me. All right, we'll get started in a minute. Just want to update a couple things and we'll be good. But this is the first time for announcements, so hopefully the sound is a little bit better. And I'll let you know that one thing I'm going to do for this channel, eventually it'll get monetized, like officially through YouTube. But and I'll probably come on camera. But that just depends on timing. I want to get my office situated because I'm gonna have to add another monitor, and I want to look at as best as possible for you fine people. And I also want to announce what I would do to monetize in this. So there's going to be two things. One, I like speed chops. That's one of the things I do. I'm a pretty good communicator, pretty effective, especially when it comes to job interviews, when it comes to communicating on the job. And that's going to be one of those tools I offer. Not right now, but eventually that is going to be the thing. However, anyone who's in Theo's class, they don't have to worry about that. Anytime you come into that class, if he points you to me, I'll help you with an initial resume review. And if we establish a rapport, I'll do a follow-up. And I'll help you out with a LinkedIn setup, how to do speed chops, and we'll continue from there. Eventually, I'll do job program type of speed chops, which means, an official tailoring of resume, LinkedIn, and interview prep for people who are in the IT industry. So I hope that sounds like something that's appealing to you, because for the next few years, you're going to eat. If you know your stuff, and I mean know your stuff, and not just, uh, gosh, not just a slouch. Like if you've done, you know, JavaScript, all right, you're in a red ocean. It's not going to work, right? And if you've done, Python development, if you know your stuff, you're going to go. But you're going to have to move into other things. You have to know your TensorFlow. You're going to have to know your data engineering. You're going to have to know your cloud. You're going to have to know the DevOps process, right? And you're going to have to become a jack of all tools. So what I'll do, go into why I wanted to go on this. And I'll make it as quick as possible. They aren't paying me. All right. So what is this about? Okay. This article is good. All right. So what this article is basically saying is a 26-year-old who works at a U.S. university used her employer benefits to pursue her master's in computer science, which is good, was surprised to find that 99% of her program students were Indian, a concentration she found unusual given the school isn't considered a top-tier institution. So what I take that as, that's going to be like West Virginia University in Nowheresville. It's going to be Penn State, California, Berkeley, whatever. There's all these satellite schools that do have master's degrees in comp sci, information science, and they're not going to be effective. I mean, they'll get you something, but not what you need. So let's go on. The Reddit user voiced concerns over the wave of Indian students flocking to U.S. universities for master's degrees, questioning whether their hopes for American jobs align with the tough job market they'll face. I kind of feel like it's going to be really hard for all of these kids to get jobs in the U.S., she wrote. It's already hard for American kids. Yeah, yeah. Okay. Donald Trump pick is making, see, that's going to be something else. Donald Trump is going to be, and I'll follow that up. So 26-year-old works at a U.S. university and used her employee benefits. Surprised by 99%. This is a repeat. Why is this doing this? Through conversations, she learned that many students see an American degree as a pathway to work visas and job security in the U.S. To a degree. She voiced doubts about their prospects in a competitive market. One of the biggest concerns is a financial strain on these students. They're going into debt. The professors aren't even good, and they'll probably won't get a job in the U.S., she remarked, calling the whole pursuit a potential scam, costly investment with uncertain returns. It's true. it has a potential for that. She expressed sympathy for the students, admitting, I feel bad for them, honestly, suggesting that many may not fully understand the hurdles ahead. Let me know if I'm not coming in clearly because I got some bad audio reports from yesterday. Okay, so we'll continue. The Reddit user also mentioned cultural classes in the classroom, noting that some international students display classroom etiquette that might not be tolerated in a typical American setting. I agree. I, man, when I was in high school, we had a significant amount of students from India, Pakistan, the Middle Eastern countries, Southeast Asia. So think like Kuala Lumpur, Philippines, Thailand. And it was notorious. Like the Pakistani students would wash their feet in the sinks. And it was one of the most disgusting things because it wasn't like they had clean feet, but they thought that you could just wash your hands there. You should wash your feet there. And so it was this whole thing. And this was like, what, 20 years ago. So there's just different cultural habits. All right. So they're lightly talking when the professor is, which would never be tolerated in an American classroom. She added underscoring the challenges of adapting to different academic norms. For many international students, the American dream remains a powerful motivator. Yet, as this Reddit user suggests, the path may be steeper than expected, especially in today's job market. All right. Yeah, I'd agree. Because right now, a lot of these people could be going for just simple masters in information systems or computer science, which is a lot more theoretical and not as practical. So what they need to do is get really solid skills in very specific things, right? That's going to be AI. That's going to be cloud. That's going to be, oh, if you're going to be developers, if you're like a Python developer, you're going to be going to TensorFlow, right? You're going to be going into PyTorch. You're going to need to know these things that are very specific in order to get what companies want to hire you for, and they will hire you. Okay. So this is another version of that same story, right? Because these news articles are aggregators, right? So after obtaining 2 master's degrees, spending 3 years in the US, he faced an unexpected layoff in January. Job hunting didn't yield results, and by July, he found himself back in India, working remotely for a US startup that unfortunately won't transfer his H1B visa. That's bad for that startup. Probably good for him because his salary is going to be okay. But you want to get back in the US because it gives you more flexibility and latitude. All right, so now he's back in the job market, applying for US positions from abroad. They even passed an initial screening with one company, but are wrestling with a significant question. Should I inform HR that I'm in India? Hell no. His resume lists a US address, good, and hoping it might enhance his chances of being noticed. So what's the reality? Yes, it's possible to secure a job while applying from India, especially since he holds a valid stamped H1B until September 25. You got a foot race that you're going to have to win. Everybody else is trying to get competitive for these jobs. All right. So this can be a significant advantage because it means he's ready to return as soon as he receives an I-797 transfer, no additional relocation costs or visa complications for the employer. This guy's got a good position to be in. However, honesty is essential. It's wise to be transparent about his current location when initiating conversations with HR. This fosters trust and avoids misunderstandings. No. You are never honest with HR. You know the way that PIMPs will lie to get women to do certain things? That's how you have to be with HR. They are there to manage you and to make sure that you don't upset the apple cart. So you finesse the truth at best. I mean, you try to be candid when you can, but you want to make sure that you're protected. So emphasizing that they can cover his travel costs and don't require location reassistance could make him stand out positively. Yes, highlight your positives, never your negatives. Honesty doesn't pay. Networking is also vital and utilizing LinkedIn, joining professional groups, and connecting with recruiters familiar with H1B can make a significant difference. I'd say, yeah, networking with LinkedIn, professional groups, and then local recruiters. Don't mention the H1B. If you're already cleared, that's something that you don't need to bring up, right? Showing in-demand skills. Yes, that can maintain an active presence and can enhance chances in today's competitive market. So while it's a challenge, it's certainly achievable with the right strategy. All right, so that's a pretty simple one, right? But we'll go through the actual, what I think is the thread that is here, right? So this is a non-target average school, use the employee benefit to get the master's, not a lot of non-competitive, non-American students. Oof. So got a job in data science, but mainly through a connection. Connections, man. Who you know matters a little bit more than what you know. You need that both, though. Your network is your net worth. That's the greatest saying. Kind of feel like it's going to be really hard for all these kids to get jobs in the US. It's really hard for American kids. Anyway, from my observation, I think this is kind of a scam because he's in schools Indian kids are falling victim to. They're coming here, going into debt. The professors aren't good. And they probably won't be able to get a job in the US. I feel bad for them. The other thing is Indian kids have brutal classroom etiquette. Yeah, this is a thing. Let's see some of the replies. That's a repost. Job market is bad right now. Getting a master's in the US is more often than not meant financial willfall. Look, if you want to see when recommendation, I put that in my college and now, you could do WGU. If you have skills in IT, you could do that WGU, go as fast as you can. If you're in Theo's class, I said that in that video, you could go speed run getting a BS in cloud computing because your certs will transfer in as credits. You do like a half and half with was it Sophia.com and study.com to get the prerequisites out of the way. You wind up knocking out of 120 credits, you could do 70 credits, meaning at the end of it, if you got the certs that Theo recommends, you did the prereqs from Sophia.com and study.com, which is a simplified method of handling, English, history, basic mathematics. It's a way to get around this, right? There's no recession-proof employee, unless you are a unicorn, correct? So, yeah. So a couple of years ago, I remember there was a university in West Virginia. That's why I used that earlier. That they had a very specific pipeline coming from like ITT Tech and another one of those for-profit universities, and they were going to this one specific university in West Virginia because they had no requirement for your program to be accredited for your bachelor's degree or a transfer in GPA rate. So they had a bunch of these kids who had a degree and they had a bachelor's, right? They had a bachelor's degree, they had grades, but they didn't need to push them. So they went through there and it paid them. And the big reason why is because international students pay full freight. They don't get financial help. So they wind up paying, if the tuition is 10K a year, they could wind up paying all 10K or even more than that because they're international, because it displaces an American student, right? You will not find Indians in highly ranked universities. Yes, you will. You'll find Indians, and they want to go for the Ivies, but those are the top dogs. If you look at a lot of the AI papers that have been coming out over the past 10 years, a lot of them have Indian and Chinese names. So I don't think there's going to be anything great you're going to find here. All right, so I'm going to play the last bit and see if this works.
And they weren't down there just for a
All right. So this is an interview with Steve Bannon and Stephen Miller, right? Stephen Miller was something else. I'm going to try and speed this up at 1.25, right? Because I want to get this done about 5 or 10 minutes. So I'm going to pause it when I can. Hold on.
By the way, we started off the day in London with our tech group talking about the progressive plutocrats in Silicon Valley. John Hayward came on and talked about these oligarchs that were down there with Paul Ryan, Mitch McConnell, and they weren't down there just for a radical ideology. I can't tell you the number of callers that call in and are Trump supporters but are rattled. And what they're rattled about is they see this massive rally with the Disney workers, and then they hear a debate, and they think they're hearing a different thing on the visas and everything. Then the next day it's clarified. They got a debate coming up. And they see these oligarchs down there with 54 private jets, and they're not down there for their health. They're called together by Karl Rove, and it's a Stop Trump movement. And it's a Stop Trump movement because they want unlimited HB1 visas. So how is this going to work out in the Trump campaign? Is there going to be people read the white papers, people hear the Disney workers, people hear the rhetoric, and then all of a sudden, and is it you're trying to be nuanced, or is it a mixed signal, or is it not a that doesn't believe in the policy because you come out the next day and reverse it? Where are we in the Trump campaign right now on HB1 visas? Because you got the oligarchs down there, brother, and they got Karl Rove, and they got literally hundreds of millions of dollars to come, and they're coming for one reason. And the reason they're coming is they want unlimited ability to go throughout the world and have people come here and compete with kids coming out of engineering schools and IT jobs. If you're in your 40s or 50s right now, people will tell you.
All right, I'm going to stop there right there for a second. This is a big thing because, all right, if you look at the past, let's say 5 years, there have been a number of small, let's call them worker rebellions. One I'd qualify was the University of Missouri football team. Another one I'd qualify as the airline stewards, flight instructors. They had a strike. You had teacher strike in, I want to say, West Virginia and Oklahoma. You had a number of these that were pretty big. Big problem is, and he's pointing this out, is that a lot of the oligarchs, right, technocrats, industrialists, whatever, they are operating from the perspective of their interests, right? And you have to look no further than Jack Welch, who I think 30 years ago, he said that his dream was if he could take any US company that he was running, put it on a barge and float it to the country where you could have the cheapest possible labor, he would do that all the time. And he held that mentality, and it served him well initially when he was running GE. Problem is, GE stopped making stuff, and then they turned into a financial institution. Now they're a financial institution that doesn't make anything, and they also don't make money from financing. There's only so much you can do with that. That's why they're basically on the way to ruin. Another downfall of that mindset was a lot of people who worked under Welch wound up going to Boeing. Have you heard about all the crap that they're going through nowadays? See, they want to blame all this DEI stuff, which I saw that was a red herring. But a lot of it is because they've been cheaping out on everything, especially hiring good labor and hiring good executives who know how to run the company. That's what you need. You need people who know the skills, who know how to do the job. Boeing could get back on board, right? They need to hire one of the best engineering PhD MBAs, somebody who knows the boardroom, knows the mechanics, knows the engineering, can get this thing done, and Boeing could be back on top. Problem is, they don't want to do that. The shareholders probably have some investment against it, and they're kind of cooked at this point, right? They're going to go through a lot, and it's a big problem because they're pretty much our sole major airline manufacturer in the world. It's them and what, Airbus? That's it. Anyways, let's continue.
Yeah, they haven't had a raise in decades in IT. What was supposed to be a great career turned out not to be a great career. It's because of these visas. And now you got all the engineering schools are all full of people from South Asia and East Asia. And it's not that people have any problem with those folks learning, but they've come in here to take these jobs. You've turned over the entire American education system. We've cut out art. We've cut out history. We've cut out music. Why have we done it? STEM, science, technology, engineering, and math. We've told every minority kid in this country, you got to excel that. What happens? They get into graduate school. They can't get engineering degrees. They can't get into these graduate schools because they're all foreign students. When they come out, they can't get a job. And they're looking for the people like Ted Cruz and Donald Trump and these people that talk about immigration, talk about HB1 visas to stand up for them against these oligarchs. So where?
All right, I'm kind of confused what he means by minority kid. Does he mean just non-white, or does he mean non-white, non-black, or does he mean black? Because there's a lot of different ways you could piece this apart. You got a lot of non-white kids, or like, let's say Indian, Asian, let's say Asian, like East Asian, Southeast Asian, South Asian. There's a lot of those kids do pretty well. I went to school with a bunch of them. Big problem is there's not enough jobs that they can do. But the ones I know who are doing it, you go down to Raleigh, North Carolina, there's a little suburb just southwest of Raleigh, near the Triangle, and it's like 70% South Asian. And they're doing very well. Go to any Oracle conference, Asian. See any JavaScript developers, Asian. They're doing Indian, to be in particular. They're doing very well. Not with black children. You're going to find the biggest thing is that there's always a lag at the beginning of their school. Usually in college, they'll find that freshman year is usually the hardest. And then after that, they wind up keeping up. So there's something that is, I'm not going to go into that. Friedman, I'll talk to you one-on-one on this. But there's been studies that have shown that black children tend to do poorly in that first freshman year, and then by the time they get to senior year, they catch up to all their other peers. So something there. I don't think it's cognitive. I think it's social, political, so something cultural oriented. But that's a whole other conversation. Let's continue.
Where are we on this?
Well, it's brilliantly stated. With respect to the debate the other night, just to clear that up quickly and then get to the broader policy issues, the way that Megyn Kelly phrased the question was about high-skilled immigration. And this tends to be a confusion point in media's coverage and discussion of the issue, which is that
Isn't it Mr. Trump's responsibility to correct Megyn Kelly?
Well, I mean, the statement that went out that evening happened, within 30 minutes of the debate's conclusion. But high-skilled immigration and the H1B visa are just not the same thing. And you'll notice this if you pick up a copy of a local newspaper. You'll oftentimes see the phrase high-skilled immigration. Sometimes it's used by people on our own side, and I don't ever use that phrase because the reality is that we're talking about less skilled foreign guest workers who are less educated than Americans, who are paid less than Americans, who know less about the computing industry and about the technology industry than Americans. And so I just don't use that phrase personally.
Is Donald Trump going to stand up to these oligarchs that are?
Maybe. I personally don't think he will, but I think this is the time. I think a lot of chaos and confusion is going to come about because a big thing that Americans have, if you get the skills, you got 12 hours ahead, meaning every time you want to deal with a team in India, if it's 9 a.m., it's 9 p.m. there. So if you need to get a project done, they're not going to start until the next morning. You got to make sure they're taking notes, that they're ready to implement the next morning. And then when they're implementing and they want to ask you a question, time difference, that is going to be the big thing. So no matter how much dollar costs you may save, that time cost, you are not going to make up. That is going to be something that's going to eat you. And you're going to have firms that are going to have, you're going to have IT firms that are going to have 1,000 Indians that are going to be able to code. How good are they? That plus only having 1 or 2 dynamos, it's going to set you back. That's why they're going to. I'd see them pull it to Eastern Europe, maybe Western Europe, more than anything else.
We're down there on this island with Arthur Brooks and the guys, all the swells at AEI. And by the way, I know Arthur. He's a terrific guy. I'm kind of stunned that they did this because he's such a good man. Down there with Mitch McConnell and Paul Ryan, who wants unlimited immigration, and you got Karl Rove going through a PowerPoint. Is Donald Trump going to stand up to those guys, or is he going to kiss their ring?
there's zero doubt about what Mr. Trump's position was on H1Bs. And the statement that went out that evening from Mr. Trump, which he felt very strongly about, made clear that the H1B program is going to be reformed dramatically to protect American workers. What Mr. Trump wants and what's laid out in his paper. So if you go back and look at Mr. Trump's policy paper.
This is the white paper that he put up basically in July, the very first one. Yep.
Yeah. The word high-skilled doesn't even appear in that paper, again, because we don't use the term high-skilled to describe H-1B workers. Other people can. That's their choice. But so what the system that he wants is that on the permanent immigration, that we would switch from a low-skilled to a high-skilled system on the permanent immigration side, not talking about these guest workers.
You saw that. I gotta let you go in a second, but you saw the CIS report yesterday. You saw that. What is it? 61 million.
Right.
Isn't the beating heart of this problem right now? The real beating heart of it, of what we got to get sorted here, is not illegal immigration. As horrific as that is, and it's horrific. Don't we have a problem? We've looked the other way on this legal immigration that's kind of overwhelmed the country. When you look and it's got 61 million, 20% of the country is immigrants.
Right. Yeah, no,
is that not a massive problem? You were with Jeff Sessions for many years. Is that not the beating heart of this problem?
Well, yeah, so it's mind-boggling. And this is something that obviously I've talked about before at some length on your program. And it's important to understand that, historically speaking, immigration is supposed to be interrupted with periods of assimilation and integration. So, for instance, if you looked at the numerically smaller immigration wave from 1880 to 1920, when the foreign-born population increased from about 7 million to 14 million, there was zero immigration growth for the next half century. In fact, the foreign-born population shrank markedly. So from 1920 to 1970, the foreign-born population shrank from about 14 million to 10 million. So the total number of immigrants in the country, the total number living and residing in the country, shrank over the course of 50 years as the overall American population doubled. Now, just to finish this little short history of immigration, from 1970 to today, the foreign-born population has quadrupled, more than quadrupled, from less than 10 million to more than 40 million. And then plus you add in the kids from the CIS report, right? And you get up to
it's scary.
60 million.
It's scary.
So there's no precedent for that kind of growth whatsoever. And if you were to follow the history of the 20th century, so you want to win an immigration argument with your friends, and they say, well, we should follow America's history, then the reply to that is, you're absolutely right, we should follow America's history. And the history of America is that an immigration on period is followed by an immigration off period.
Stephen Miller, Senior Policy Advisor for Donald J.
Yeah, I'm gonna let this finish.
Trump. He will be back on the show in the days and weeks ahead. Particularly, we're going to drill down some trade policy in the next couple of days. After the debate, Steve, I know you're incredibly busy today. Thank you so much for taking time away from your travel schedule to join us. Thank you, sir. By the way, we started off the day.
All right, so yeah, I would scroll down in this, but you never know what's going to appear when it comes to the Twitter, this booty naked chicks and all that stuff. All right, and so I'll go back to America used to not have actual real immigration when it came to like our border. We did for certain things, and it opens and closes. I mean, you can think about the Ellis Island stuff in the post 1880s. I want to say when the Irish famine and all that stuff was happening, Irish potato famine. The big thing is a lot of that was just for cheap labor, not for high tech white collar skills. That is a very big thing. So if you're paying attention, if they're going to have this contest between all of this, there's a window where they're trying to settle it, and you need to know where you're going to stand. If you don't, then you could be cooked. And so at this point, I think get your skills up, do your studying, figure out how to get your studying up. For me, I said study hall. I did an hour earlier. I'm going to finish doing some note transcription, and then I'm going to be paying attention in class. Luckily, I've already taken this class, so it's not going to be a big thing. And I'm going to be dropping off pretty quick. But before I go, I'll show you what my daily schedule looks like. Give me 1 second. All right. There you go. This is what I normally do, right? The time's a little bit off because sometimes I'm up at 6 and I'll exercise from 6 to 8, right? But since I work from home, I can do that. I do a little bit of work, a little bit of studying, a little bit of reading, and then lunch with a little bit of studying. Then I go back to work and I get a lot of it. That's when I can really get my flow state. And then I'll go on and I'll be studying. That's my big window. It's at 6 to 8 p.m. I do 2 50-minute bursts. 50-minute on, 10 minutes. I take a walk, chill out, come back. Then I have class. Sometimes it's a class I've been through before, so I can, just listen, observe. Sometimes it's something I haven't done, so I have to be a lot more hands-on, right? And then I have this recorder going, and I can take that, go forward, right? So it's roughly an hour and a half to 2.5 hours a day. Problem is, if you have kids, if you have a wife, you have people that depend on you, you're gonna have to focus your attention on a lot of that. So it's much harder. And I apologize for you. But this is some current stuff I'm going over, right? Through class, right? Some AI skill builders, Google's professional cloud architect, Terraform. And here's the thing, I finished a lot of this. I just haven't updated this. So yes, I finished Python class course, finished Fluent Python. I'm finishing up a practice on Boto 3. So yeah, Google Masterclass, I finished that. The PCA, I'm actually rereading a notes book. So I've finished that, but I have a second book I'm working on. That's what I'm transcribing those for. Terraform. I finished that. Python crash course. Yeah, finished that. Fluent Python, finished that. Boto 3. That's the AWS SDK for Python. I'm working on I finished that, but I'm working on a second project to conglomerate all 20 lessons I taught. And if you want that, just let me know. I have like a playlist with all that stuff. And I think I have a repo for, oh, no, I haven't put the repo up on GitHub yet. What is it? Google Masterclass, I finished that. So this is, yeah, security engineer, I finished that. That's a redo. Yes, so a lot of the stuff I've repeated. I finished these, the RFCs, the NIST stuff. NIST is great, and I'm gonna start working on SANS, which unfortunately I got rejected by the scholarship. So these are some of the books I finished, but I gotta add those ones up top to this list. So that'll be about, I don't know, 10 books. And these are Udemy's I've finished so far. And then I have a couple more. Yeah, so I haven't updated this list in at least 2 months. Next few months are gonna be GCP PCA, I'm going to be taking that in December. The AWS security, going to be taking that early 2025. The CISSP, I'm going to be taking that probably Q2 to Q3, no, probably Q3 2025, right? And I'm going to try and get the Linux fundamentals, CKA and CKS, right? But I'm going to be working and studying. So that's what I suggest you do, right? I'm finished as far as that. I'm going to tell you this. If you're with Theo, you know what you're doing. Keep it up. You're doing good. Don't let the time distract you. Don't let your brain stress you out. I usually flip from the IT stuff and I'll read a little philosophy after the fact. Right. And that kind of gets my brain to think in a lot more the concrete way to a lot more abstract. Right. And that philosophy can be a little more vague. It doesn't, you don't have to be reading Foucault, which I wouldn't recommend anyways, unless you want to torture yourself. But get yourself on the path. It is a lot easier than you think. And Theo's over preparing you. So once you're ready, you're ready. Outside of that, I'm going to try and do something shorter like this. I think we might have done, what, 20 minutes, 30? All right, I'm late for class. Anyways, thank you for tuning in. I will post